Well, welcome everyone. My name is Chris Hurt. I'm an occupational therapist based here in Brisbane. And we're very lucky today on behalf of OtPetQ to have one of our OT colleagues from South Australia, Alison Copley, along with us. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you.
We might start today by, if you don't mind, just quickly telling us a little bit about your role and your business down there.
Sure. I'm a director of an occupational therapy practice called Develop Occupational Therapy. I have a co-director, Sonia Merchland, and we started the practice together nearly 5 years ago. We currently employ about 30 occupational therapists and two physiotherapists, which brings us to about a 20-odd full-time equivalent practice. We come very much from a practice background that's around occupational performance and really supporting children and young people within a partnership and relationship-based model. So we have very strong values around working for and with families within the context of what's important to them and working within as much as we can within a strengths-based approach within that context of the world. The way we describe our practice very much to the families and the people we work with is it's about working with families and children and young people to do the things they need to do, the things they want to do, and the things they delight in doing. And we've grown very, very quickly from having one client 5 years ago to the need for at least 30-odd staff these days.
Thank you for that. So I guess one of the things that we're going to be talking about a bit here today is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So up here in Queensland, there's some areas where the rollout has started, but by and large it's yet to arrive. And we'd be very much in getting your input into your own experience of that as an OT and within your business as well. So first of all, before the NDIS, were you already taking student placements there?
Yes, we were. So we started the practice before NDIS and we were having funding options through HACWA and Better Start Medicare. We also have quite a lot of work that we do through other not-for-profit or government agencies. So we've historically had support through or funding through places like Families SA or Ronald McDonald House, places like that. And of course self-funding people. So there's always been a broad mix of clients that we would have supported. When we were very small, so our very first student prac, we had no office, we had no computers, we had an email address but only for ourselves, and we were working out of our lounge rooms, and somehow we managed to actually organise a student prac in amongst all of those things as well. So right from pretty well the inception of the business, we've been able to offer pracs for students. The one we offered at that point was off of the diligent excitement of the student herself rather than us, but it set up an expectation that we could do quite creative things within a private practice model and enjoy it and get great responses back from our families as well.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear. So can you tell us when the NDIS was introduced in your area?
Well, we were a trial site in South Australia for children. So we started when NDIS started, some 3 and a bit years ago.
Right. And what was the general mood and perception of the NDIS and obviously NDIA beforehand, both in terms of yourself, your colleagues and the clients, the people that you work with?
Very good question. Sonia and I were both, as the directors at that stage, the practice was small, and we were both working within other community or government organisations while running the practice. And there was certainly a difference in understanding and emotion associated with the rollout depending on which organisation we were working at the time. So working in a government-based disability service, it was an incredibly stressful time for people. The translation into a fee-for-service model when we had been state government funded was quite stressful. Working in a fee-for-service model within the private practice, it was just a translation of a new model of funding. So it actually, the portal to bill at that point was a lot easier to use than the HACWA one had ever been. So it really wasn't a big translation. The challenges we've had along the way have often been about policy changes, and within South Australia, knowing what those policy changes were outside of being a big organiser, being a government or a not-for-profit organisation, have been often hard to know. So you'd suddenly get someone arrived with a plan and the expectations of what you did with that plan changed. We've very much taken on the approach that the NDIA is a funding model. It gives us a way within the private sector to fund the people that we most want to see. The battles we've had have been about a portal not working for 4 months at the start of this financial year, and us not being paid. It's certainly not been about whether or not this scheme has supported choice and options for families. That's been really successful.
Were there any potential challenges or threats that you anticipated relating to the introduction of the NDIS, particularly as it relates to the student placements?
The biggest issue we have is that our staff are fee-for-service staff. So our staff get paid when they work and they don't get paid when they don't. So we work on primarily a percentage of billable hours model. We do have project work that we do for various places, which is a different system, but mostly they get paid if they work. The challenge for students, therefore, is that we don't actually pay anyone we're not paid to do it, and we don't pay anyone, in theory, to supervise students. So in order to take a student, typically the process is always, and the selling point in any organisation has always been, you put your work in at the beginning, they run your caseload, you catch up on everything you've got behind on, and then you go back to normal at the end of 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, whatever their prac length is.
So have you been able to continue to supervise students under the NDIS?
Yes, we have. So we have had, we had 3 in a batch, which was a bit of an adventure. We do a mixture of undergraduates and postgraduates. We tend to take, the way the South Australia course works is we have a few choices on what we could take. So we typically offer 1 each term, 1 to 2 pracs each term. I think sometimes the pracs haven't been needed here, but we've typically put through 3 to 4 students a year for the last few years. The challenge is always, of course, when students have challenges on prac, but that's always a challenge, yeah. But it's certainly worked. We certainly don't find it any more challenging than what we did prior to NDIA.
So in relation to that, and you've touched on this just then as well, so are there any other changes that you've had to implement since NDIA? And if so, how did you go about making those?
Not specifically within our organisation, mostly because we were already a fee-for-service service.
How do you think the actual impact of the NDIA has been for the students themselves? Have you had any feedback or any comments from the students that you've had?
What's really interesting is that there's a greater perception that you can work in paediatrics, which I think is kind of exciting. I also think a lot of our students coming through have an understanding that there is fee-for-service work. So I think they have a different business model sense than what perhaps I graduated with, where I was waiting for my long-term permanent government job. And outside of that, no, I think they still come out wanting to know what an OT is and how to work and how to clinically reason, and do you use SOAP notes, and do I really have to do equipment, and how do you fill out that form? We don't see a huge variation. We don't necessarily introduce the fact that NDIA is an indicator of how we do things. We introduce the fact that it's how we get paid. So, yeah. So whether we probably influence what questions they ask, I don't know. That would be a very good one for the uni guys here in South Australia, I think.
Certainly. And with the rollout about to happen up here, what advice would you have for OTs who may be concerned about the potential impacts on practice and the potential impacts on their ability to take students on placement?
Get on with it. It's fine. It hasn't made an impact. I think the sense of change and the unknown is always scary for all of us, and that we are all nervous by any change, and particularly change implemented by federal governments. We'd certainly get nervous. It's certainly not for us been a scary change, and it certainly hasn't been anything that's warranted the anxiety that I think we all felt when it started.
Well, Alison, look, I think that's a really good point to finish on, so I cannot thank you enough for your time today. On behalf of the attendees at the conference and myself and my colleagues within OPEQ, thank you so much for your time. It's really, it's all happening up here at the moment, obviously. We're at a different stage on this journey, so to get your advice and your input is absolutely invaluable, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome.